the regular City Council meeting of Monday, September 20th, 2021. It is now 8:01 p.m., and I would like to ask everyone to join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, thank you all so very much. Madam City Clerk, for the record, could you confirm that we have a quorum?
Yes, Mayor, we do have a quorum for this evening. We have 4 council members present. We have 2 council members that are joining virtual, Councilmember Wolfley and Councilmember Ndebumadu. The only council member absent is Councilmember Gardner.
Okay, thank you so very much. At this time, I would ask if we have any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments. Hearing none, we'll move on to citizen participation. Madam City Clerk, do we have any citizen participation?
Yes, Mayor, just for the record, we did receive 20 comments via email in regards to the ice arena, and then we do have a couple of people signed up today.
Thank you so much. We'll go in order, and I just ask that you state your name and your address. The first person we will be calling is Frank Schock. Please come forward to the microphone. Good evening.
Good evening.
And if you could speak into the mic so everyone could hear you.
I'm not used to this, you know. Mayor, I've come here today, which I've really been holding off for a very, very long time. But I'm part of the forgotten part of Bowie, Penn Manor Lane, the southernmost street in Bowie. And the first problem that we have, there are 2 problems. There's problems with rentals, and then there's problems with speeding on Penn Manor Lane. And I have pictures and to substantiate what I'm talking about. We have a constant speeding in excess of 44 miles an hour up and down Penn Manor Lane. We have visitors, we have people who live there, people who are taking their children to school, even the school buses. The school buses, yes. Their roar is very distinctive. I have dealt with this and had damages to 2 vehicles already. One was destroyed. The other one put me out of commission work-wise for over 2 months. I'd like something. I have talked to Mr. Stefanos many, many times. The speed marker indicator has been put up. The small speed camera, what the little box that they put on the light post has been put up. The average speed was 44 miles an hour, but that doesn't attribute to the people who are doing in excess of 60 at times. There was an accident that destroyed my vehicle. The young man said he was only doing 40 miles an hour, but if you look at the pictures, the skid marks were 167 feet. And like I said, you go to Anne Arundel, Montgomery County, everywhere around here, and you see the low-lying speed bumps everywhere. not in Bowie. Maybe on Bel Air Drive, but that's about it. That's the only one that I know of. So if there's something that could be done, because if somebody took a survey of all of my neighbors up and down the street, and I wish I could get them here, they would tell you the same thing. Very dangerous. I had a visitor about 2.5 weeks ago. We were standing in my yard. Somebody came flying down the street and he looked, he couldn't believe, because he lives in Anne Arundel County. In his neighborhood, there's speed bumps. So if there's something that we could do, because I have lost money because of this, time, and it's very dangerous. The heaven forbid any kids or anything. I want to see somebody investigate that street. Mr. Stefanos himself should get out there and look at it, because something needs to be done, really. The second part is rentals. The city code does not provide enough excuse me, like I said, I'm not used to this. The city code does not really emphasize what should be done with rentals, how the houses should be kept. I've been living in pure hell for the last 3.5 years because of people that moved in that won't take care of the house. The pictures that I have will prove what I'm saying. The house, the people parking all over the place, throwing plastics and even masks all over the lawn, not to mention. But anyway, they have a contractor also that had his muffler off of his walk-behind lawnmower. The noise was so deafening, I closed my windows, doors, everything, went to the far end of the house. I could still hear him loud and clear. This went on for almost 3 months. I said nothing. Finally, I called the police, our wonderful Bowie police, okay? The policeman went up to the thing. When I told him, he said, I don't know what I'm looking at. The pipe is broken off loud, so loud that it disturbs the peace, my peace, okay, which I like. I'm not, a regular lawnmower is fine. I have one myself. I have a tractor. But this has caused me a lot of problems. And I actually have some legal problems because of it. And there's a letter in there that, because I tried to address this issue back on, I believe it was July 25th, okay? Nothing was done, okay? That, according to Miss Braun, she said, I forgot. She was looking for the paperwork. She couldn't find it. I forgot. Because of this, I've got some problems that I have to take care of, and I do not like it. I am a retired correctional officer, sir, 26 years, and the last thing I need is legal problems. So if there's something that we could do to amend the code, please take care of these rental properties, because, like I said, I had the most wonderful neighbors in the past. It was so nice. Everybody was friendly. Everybody talked to each other. I don't talk to my neighbors anymore. I can't. They don't understand, what taking care of a house is. Okay. I hope we can do something about this, please, because I don't want to be here, please. Okay.
Thank you. Next we have Ms. Carrie Bridges.
Good evening, Mayor Adams, City Council, and City staff. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke with Henri Gardner, about the ice arena and what was going on with the venue. He expressed his opinion and what he thought should happen. I then informed him why the people in this city that support hardwood floors are upset about the ice hardwood floors debate. And now I'm going to inform you. Did you know that you cannot receive a membership at the Bowie City Gym unless you are a city resident? This is the only facility in the city that has this requirement. I had parents that had children that had membership for years, and they were told they could not renew their membership. It could only come to the gym with a resident that had a membership. What is perplexing to me is why this is not known to you, members of this council. I am sure Wolfley, who pushed this agenda, and the staff knows, but the rest of you are clueless. When I was talking to Mr. Gardner, he called the city manager, Mr. Lott, who was also clueless to this policy being in place. I am not sure who I should direct my frustrations to the most, those who were elected to office to represent us, or those who receive a paycheck from the city. So this is a reflection of how in tune you are or are not to the policies that are in place in this city. In 2020, Showtime aired a special called Basketball Country in the Water, where they feature current NBA players from PG County. Basketball is big in this county, and we in the city of Bowie are not being good neighbors. Or maybe we are, but only when it comes to a certain demographic. We are not being fair to people who live in this city, nor are we being good neighbors to people in this county. But we have been the talk of this county since these changes, and what is being stated is not good. I let groups, individuals, parents, and anyone else who asks me know that several of you are unaware of this policy while we watch you so viciously fight for ice in this city. I also let them know that while Mr. Gardner expressed or appeared to be frustrated about this, he was on the city council when this policy was put in place and had zero to say about it then. Unfortunately, this is going to hit all of you on this city council, whether you are aware or not. To know of this policy demonstrates how biased you are towards facility usage in this city, and to not know is demonstrating how in tune you really are to an entire community of people that represents the city. To push for a facility to be built that services people who do not live in this community nor county, while ignoring other individuals who live in this city and county, is bias at the least. I am pretty sure the people in this city, as well as in this county, will be able to read between the lines and form their own opinion. We are still in a pandemic, and every day, the death toll is once again climbing. I am not standing here talking about you building anything. I am just asking you to be fair with what we already have. Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Lisa Couture.
Okay, good evening, council members, viewers, attendees. My name is Lisa St. Louis Couture. I've been here, I've done this, and I'm back again, and I'm a resident in Maryland. I've approached this ICE issue several ways, with a bleeding heart, with profound stats, and with an ethical plea last time. So I've shown passion, anger, knowledge, and historical precedents. I want to know, what have you shown? I want you to think about that. It's time for your answers. Think about how you have approached your leadership, if you can call it that. Think about what you have shown your constituents, your users, and most importantly, the children in this area. This was supposed to be a special meeting, but here we are with a full agenda. I can't speak to that, except that it's a little confusing. So here are my questions. Write them down if need be, because people deserve answers. Question 1 is truly for all council members, new and old. How do you validate turning your back on a city investment that has existed for 50 years, that is the only recreational facility that has a return on investment, and you've committed millions of borrowed, not taxes, dollars to? That's question 1. Question number 2, again, is addressed at all members. How do you define support? The mayor was quoted last meeting as saying, "I don't believe that there is a single member of this council who is not supporting ICE." No one refuted that. So how is this just semantics? How do you define support? Because the dictionary says, as a verb, it is to bear all or part of the weight, hold it up. Another definition, give assistance to, especially financially, to enable to function or not. It needs to act. Taking away ICE is not support. It's not support for our community. It's not support for your community. It's not support for any community. They all deserve fairness. Carrie's absolutely right, fair. And I hope her policies can be addressed, but they have nothing to do with whether we have ICE or not. Taking away ICE is not support. Supporting is not saying we had a plan, initiated a plan, secured funding and materials, broke ground, trashed a plan, paid more people to give you a plan with the same answers this council has heard for 8 years, then continue to debate the same need for ICE. It's unreal. Please, how are you going to validate this? How do you define support? But my third question is scary, and it's more directed towards the mayor, I'm sorry. But as a Marylander, you do affect me. One, I'm in PG County every darn day, several times a day. I'm in Bowie every day. But I was attacked online by a constituent. She had a differing opinion. I was accused of being privileged and my few pennies not mattering to the city of Bowie. I was told I was afraid to travel to parts of PG County or near Baltimore. Somehow I do 1,000 miles a week all over every state, and I'm not afraid to go anywhere. Don't worry, I set her straight and would do it again, because no one's going to attack me. But this person brought things to light. Let's quote, "Elections are coming up. Trust and believe we are holding accountable, especially South Bowie, where the income levels are higher." Okay, who's this we? Who is the we? Affluent South Bowie residents, apparently? Funny, because my hockey-playing brother was the golf pro at Woodmore. But apparently, I have no business being here. So it seriously seems that your political campaign for Comptroller of Maryland is hinged on the support financially from a group of residents, when any Marylander can see that seriously mishandled funds has been done here. Are you buying political backing from a very small group to elevate yourself at the cost of thousands of residents and users and their futures? Because that's what it darn well looks like if you're willing to turn your back, not support, not validate, not do what was been shown. It is unreal and it makes no sense. And answers are owed to a lot of people. If you do not move forward with ICE for this community, you are doing such a disservice it will go down in history, politically, economically, and you will destroy the faith in politics for children to come. Look forward to your answers.
Okay, I believe that's all we have. And we will now move on to presentations. And so we'll start off with, I think it's Ms. Jessica Fusel from the Diversity Committee will present on Hispanic Heritage Month. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Buenas noches. Me llamo Jessica Fuchile y soy miembro del Comité de Diversidad de la ciudad de Bowie. Haré esta presentación de parte de la señora Jenny Díaz Gilbard, miembro del comité que no pudo acompañarnos el día de hoy. In translation, good evening. My name is Jessica Fuchile, and I am a member of the Diversity Committee for the City of Bowie. I am making this presentation on behalf of Ms. Jenny Díaz Gilbard, member of the committee who could not accompany us in this evening. It is the Diversity Committee's wish to remind our residents that there are certain months and weeks set aside in the calendar to reflect on the contribution of various communities and groups of people. In September 1968, Congress authorized President Lyndon B. Johnson to proclaim National Hispanic Heritage Week, observed during the week that included September 15th and September 16th. The observance was expanded in 1989 by Congress to a month-long celebration from September 15th through October 15th, where America celebrates the culture and traditions of those who trace their roots to Spain, Mexico, and the Spanish-speaking nations of Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. September 15th was chosen as the starting point for the celebration because it is the anniversary of independence of 5 Latin American countries: Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. In addition, Mexico and Chile celebrate their independence days on September 16th and 18th, respectively. According to the Census Bureau 2020 census, the nationwide Hispanic community is 18.7% of the U.S. population, and as of 2010, the U.S. has the second largest worldwide Hispanic population after Mexico. Maryland's state Hispanic population is 11.8% of the whole, and Prince George's County Hispanic population makes up 21.2% of the county's population. I promise I will not give you any more numbers. To celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, I'd like to briefly talk about Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, Sonia Sotomayor. She was nominated to the court by President Barack Obama on May 26, 2009, and has served since August 8, 2009. She is the third woman to serve as Associate Justice and first Latina. She was born in the Bronx, New York, to Juan Sotomayor from the Suturese area, San Juan, Puerto Rico, and to Selena Baez, an orphan from the Santa Rosa neighborhood in Lajas, a rural area on Puerto Rico's southwest coast. Her parents met during World War II. Selena served in the U.S. Army Corps. Mr. Sotomayor had a third-grade education, did not speak English, and worked as a tool and die worker. Ms. Baez worked as a telephone operator and later as a practical nurse. Justice Sotomayor has a younger brother, Juan, who is a physician and university professor in New York. Sotomayor self-identifies as New Yorican. Being a Bronx native, she became a lifelong New York Yankees fan. At the age of 7, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, resulting in daily insulin shots. She was inspired to go into a legal career from watching Perry Mason and knew she would become an attorney by the age of 10. Her mother emphasized education and credits her with being her life inspiration. She passed the entrance exam to attend Cardinal Spellman High School in the Bronx. Justice Sotomayor worked as she attended school and graduated valedictorian in 1972. She attended Princeton University on full scholarship. In Princeton, Justice Sotomayor became a moderate student activist in the Acción Puertorriqueña organization. She sent complaints and wrote opinion pieces encouraging Princeton to hire Latino teachers and recruit Latino students with positive results. In 1976, Justice Sotomayor graduated summa cum laude with a bachelor's degree in history and married Kevin Noonan, who she knew from high school. The same year, she entered Yale Law School, received her Juris Doctorate in 1979, and was admitted to the New York Bar the following year. Justice Sotomayor's accomplishments are too long to cover here, so I'll give you a brief outline. She started off as an assistant district attorney for New York County in 1979. In 1984, she entered private practice, specializing in intellectual property, international law, and arbitration. She also served on various agencies and boards from 1987 to 1992. Justice Sotomayor left private practice in 1992 when she was nominated by President George H.W. Bush to a seat on the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York and was confirmed by unanimous consent by the U.S. Senate. Justice Sotomayor became the youngest judge in the Southern District, the first Hispanic federal judge in New York State, and became the first Puerto Rican woman to serve as a judge in the U.S. federal courts. In 1997, President Clinton nominated Justice Sotomayor to a seat on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, and after much political wrangling, served her commission October 7, 1998. She remained there for over 10 years. On May 26, 2009, President Barack Obama nominated her for the Supreme Court. She was confirmed and sworn in August 8, 2009, becoming the first Hispanic to serve on the Supreme Court. As a justice, she was able to swear in Joe Biden for his second term, and later Kamala Harris as vice president. Thank you for your time and attention.
At this time, I'd like to have Shalomaya Griffith Johnson come up with the Youth Council Chair, who is the Youth Council Chair for the Youth Council Monthly Report.
Good evening, Mayor Adams, council members, city officials, and constituents. My name is Shalomaya Griffiths Johnson, and I'm the chair of the Bowie Youth Council. On behalf of the BYC, I will be giving our Youth Council monthly update. 11 members and 2 advisors were sworn in on July 6, 2021. We currently serve as the 2021-2022 Bowie Youth Council. Chairman, Shalomaya Griffiths Johnson. Vice Chair, Enoch Amatayo. Secretary, Joel Kellner. Parliamentarian, Annabelle Washington. Social Media Representative, Sabrina Lucier. Youth Council Member, Tyler Dawkins. Youth Council Member, Aiden Gunn. Youth Council Member, Lydia Liddy. Youth Council Member, Stephanie Maseko. Youth Council Member, Gabrielle McAllister. Youth Council Member, Alexander Saxton. And our advisors, Ms. Davina Hart and Ms. Tamika Washington. On July 15th, 2021, we held our Bowie Youth Council orientation meeting. Our first meeting was held on August 6th, 2021. On August 26, 2021, our Bowie Youth Council participated in Our Future, Our Streets with the State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy. Thank you, Mayor Adams, for the event t-shirts. On September 11th, 2021, the Bowie Youth Council participated in the National Day of Service and Day of Remembrance as volunteers. The BYC created a workshop subcommittee which will focus on building the Youth Council's technical and leadership skills throughout a series of workshops and engagements with the city, county, and state officials, as well as community leaders. We are also identifying BYC liaisons for each of the city committees to ensure we are engaged and synced with the larger city efforts. A few members volunteered at the Old Bowie Arts and Heritage Festival on September 18th, 2021. Now on to our up-and-coming events. We will be attending the Back to Basics with State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy. It's postponed from August 28th, 2021 to Tuesday, September 8th, 2021 from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Thank you for your time and have a great evening.
Very much. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to do our city boards and committees, the appointments and reappointments and swearing in. And at this time, if we could, I would like to have the City Council that Ms. Tiara Spencer was interviewed on September 7th for appointment to the Environmental Advisory Committee and the Green Team Executive Committee. Council concurred to appoint her to the committees as a regular member for 2-year terms. Please move to appoint her.
So moved.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go right
Make a
ahead.
motion to appoint Tiara Spencer to the Environmental Advisory Committee and Group Team Executive Committee.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none. Congratulations to Ms. Tiara Spencer. Ms. Spencer, are you here tonight? Please come forward. We will swear you in, and when we get to the part about the committees, just name both committees, okay? All right. All right, raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Tiara Spencer,
Do swear or affirm
do swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of Maryland.
to the state of Maryland,
And I support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and I support the Constitution and laws thereof,
and that I will,
and that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of regular member of the, name the committees,
execute the office of regular member of the Executive Green Team and Environmental Advisory Council
according to the Constitution
according to the Constitution
and the laws of the state of Maryland.
and the laws of the state of Maryland.
Congratulations. Please come up to receive your certificate.
I think it needs to go on for that.
Here you go. Would you like to? Here you go. Thank you so very much. Here is your first certificate. That's it. And again, your second certificate. Again, thank you so very much, council members.
Welcome to the team. Thank you so much for stepping up, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate it.
And as always, thank you so very much for your service to our community. We will now go on to any council announcements. Any council announcements? Councilman Estelle?
Thanks so much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all the volunteers and all of the city personnel who made this weekend's Old Bowie Fall Festival a tremendous success. We had a turnout that surpassed even our optimistic expectations. We had fantastic weather, which I'm told was personally arranged by the city manager, so thank you for that. And we had only positive feedback so far from the actual residents of Old Bowie, which is a big deal because we always want to make sure that they're included and feel good about the things that are going on there. So all around a great success. I hope it's the first of many of our restarted Fall Festival traditions. And a big thank you again to the Old Bowie Celebrates Committee and everyone who participated.
I would just like to echo that and thank you, Councilman, for your diligent work and to the committee on putting that together. Appreciate it. And again, to staff, it was really a phenomenal effort by staff and all that was done. City manager, I think we can all be very proud of our team. Any other comments, announcements? Hearing none, we will move on to the city manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council and the great Bowie residents out there in TV land. I have one announcement. The October 4th meeting, Tanya Mears and I will be at the International City County Managers Association Conference in Portland, Oregon. So because of our events that we are required to participate in the time change, we won't be at this meeting or participating. And I want you to know that we'll be in good hands. During that, between October 3rd and 6th, the Chief of Police, Chief Netsky, will be acting on my behalf, and of course, he will be providing an update that evening. So, and it's the only thing on the agenda so far. So therefore, I'm sure you'll be interested in what he has to say, especially with the issues going on with policing today. One other thing, I'd like to congratulate the chair of the Youth Council, Chairman Griffiths Johnson, for an outstanding speech. I know that wasn't hard, that wasn't easy, but you did good. I mean, very impressive, all right? Now, one other thing I wanted to say is that if for those who recall, in 2018, spring of 2018, we were in the budget process for 2019's budget. During that period, the City Council changed the membership requirements for the city gym. And so you have to be a city resident based on that change to have a membership at the city's gym. However, a non-resident may come into the gym and get a day pass if they are accompanied by a city resident who is a member. And that is the current policy, and it's been that way almost 4 years now. So, and one of the reasons why, I'm sure some of you recall, one of the things that precipitated that by the City Council was that city residents were having trouble finding time to play basketball, and especially the pickup games and what we would call the free time. So this remedied that. And so that's how we got to that point. All right? Otherwise, thank you very much, and let's get on with it.
Thank you, City Manager. All right, we move. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Gardner.
Yes, Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to chime in on the city manager's comment about the policy for usage of this gymnasium by city residents.
Okay, well, in the city manager's report, but go right ahead, council member.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Manager Lott. I want to speak to our resident, Ms. Bridges, who came forward. Yes, she and I did have an extensive conversation surrounding the usage of our city gymnasium. And after much review and having conversation with her, I see where she, and agree with her frustration, and many of the residents and who are oftentimes pushed away from using the gymnasium. It's to my understanding, as the city manager just outlined, the policy is to where residents can only bring 2 guests that are non-residents. And those residents that do use the city facility have to have a membership with the city gym. And then they can bring 2 guests of their own that are non-residents. And oftentimes we sit and we say that the return on investment on courts isn't as high or as great as ICE. The reason is because courts has been stifled. We have we don't open courts up as we have ICE to the population at large. We just limit courts to Bowie residents. So therefore, we're not seeing the return on investment as we do with our ICE. And I think that we should, I know that we should as a council take a look at the policy for courts and come with a more palatable suggestion for our residents and their guests, and maybe we would see a revenue growth when it comes to our courts. But I do believe that we have to take a look at our policy when it comes to the usage of our courts, because we are limiting our residents from having access with their guests as we do. If our policy is one for one particular recreational area, then we should have it match for the others. It should be the same policy across the board, not a hodgepodge effect for different recreational facilities. So I would like very much in the future that we maybe put it on our agenda to discuss the policies of usage at our recreational facilities.
And I think
that's particular.
Council member, I didn't mean to talk over you there. And I think that's the appropriate time and place to seek to place that on the agenda and for a future meeting for us to discuss. Hey, thank you, Council member.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Manager, and Ms. Bridges as well. Thank you.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda, please respond with an aye.
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 Opposed? Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. We will now move into our old business, the Bowie Ice Arena. I will turn it over to the city manager or city staff to give us insight.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, City Council.
Excuse me, city manager, if you mind, my apology. Could you speak a little louder for me?
Sure, I will. Got it, you betcha. So you look at the memorandum we submitted to you all, which is, what we tried to do is to put this in a decision memo style format so that you could read it and be in a position to make a decision. One of the things we did was we talked about what the purpose was for this meeting is to provide obtain a decision and what direction we want to go. And the background kind of gives you a chronology of what occurred since 2013 up to here, the major events from when we did the Bowie Indoor Facility feasibility study up until April the 5th, and when the design group talked to us about the condition of the ice rink. If you go to page 2 of that, it talks a little bit about recreation needs. There's a need in the city for one sheet of ice facility, multi-sheet ice facility, and possibly no ice recreation at all, depending on what the council wants to do. We looked at several courses of action, and primarily looking for a one-sheet facility. The course of actions are focused toward where we would put it. The Allen Pine Park location, Church Road, Glen Allen Park, the golf course property area, and we looked at some other sites. There was a course of action not to build anything, and then a course of action that could be combined, which would be to work with the partnership with Maryland National Capital Park and Planning for some sort of partnership opportunity. In each case, we listed the pros and cons for you, so you'd have some sort of analysis about what the situation is. And we laid out on page 3 there, we had our finance director lay out the money issues. The bond was $24 million. Of this amount, $5.9 million were dispersed to Costello Construction and other related vendors. The balance was $18,500,000. And during the last budget process, it was approved that we would take $6.9 million and put it toward FY 2022 CIP projects with a $11.6 million left. you know, there are some numbers here that Byron laid out, what our other capital projects needs, but you know that because you guys produced the budget. And then there's the issue of Bowie's revenues and expenditures, which have been, expenditures have exceeded revenues for the last 4 years as we draw down the city's fund balance, which is approximately $29 billion the last time we had a budget experience. So, in summary, all of the courses of action are feasible and sustainable. And the current operations of the ice rink is not sustainable for long range. We have cash on hand to accomplish a new objective if the objective doesn't exceed $11 million. And financial considerations must be made for other capital and fiscal constraints as we go forward. Understanding that we're using the fund balance, and we'll most likely will underspend a bit from last year because of the pandemic. You know, 3 or 4 years down the line, we're going to have to account for the our using the fund balance. But so that lays it out for us. The city staff can do whatever you direct us to do, and so we're prepared to take that direction tonight. After you all go through your policy making procedure. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Moving forward, I think what I'd like to do is have various council members give us their point of view at this time. And I think I will start with Mayor Pro Tem.
Sure. I mean, I don't really have much to say. I think that we should probably go into debate on this one since it'll be a lengthy debate. The reality is that we should not leave chambers tonight until we approve a sheet of ice and figure out a long-term plan for courts as well. My opinion is that the golf course location is ideal as we look at the master plan, as we look at strategically where we want to see sports in the city of Bowie. Obviously, I represent District 3, and the Church Road location has been divisive, to say the least. But my stance is that, you know, by the end of this meeting, we should get a sheet of ice approved in the city of Bowie.
Thank you. I'd like to now go to our Councilwoman at Large.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Staff or Mr. Lott, do we have an idea of about how much an architectural study costs?
We're not sure about that. What I've allotted for it is $50,000, if my recollection serves me correct, to get that forward. What I intend to do is to use my contingency account if you all approve a design architectural phase, and if the cost of that exceeds that $50,000, I'll come back to you and let you know. But that's the number that I think we could work with, considering that we've already had some work done on we've already taken a look at the property over there at both places. The golf course, we were looking at that for courts last year, but right now I got a number of $50,000 in my head, and if it exceeds that, I'll come back to you. But we can afford it. We have the money for it in my contingency account.
So my question is, if we wanted an architectural design study done on both Church Road and the golf course, that would be feasible?
We could do that. That will cost more, I'm sure.
Right, so that would be about $50,000 per study?
Plus, I mean, at least, but I'd have to verify that right now. I have to talk. My intent is to since we're already involved with this company 292, to give them the assignment to, if there's a direction to move forward with the design phase, or if they can't, to recommend one of their subcontractors to do the work for us. But what I see, I expect that could probably add to the cost. But without an estimate from them, I'd have trouble telling you that being too accurate. But based on my experiences, $50,000 should certainly get going on looking at one site and get us to the point where we can draft up something to come back to the council with.
Okay. Thank you. One other question. Do we have any idea or estimate on, I don't believe you have it listed on the memo, but I just wanted to kind of get some idea. I remember we talked about it before, but I don't remember if we talked about costs for demolition of the current ice rink.
We don't have any estimates on that yet.
No estimates.
That was not a course of action we studied.
Right. Okay.
But I could have our city engineer take a look at it, talk to some people, and come back with a ballpark figure. But demolition is costly, and disposal of all the rubble.
Right. Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I gather all the information before moving forward with a decision on everything. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay. Councilman at Large, Henri Gardner, do you have any questions for city staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, staff, and definitely our residents for being patient throughout this process. Like Mayor Pro Tem Rothwell mentioned earlier tonight, it is my hope and desire to bring closure to this tonight for both ICE as well as courts. Both communities have been waiting too long for us to come to some sort of decision. And the longer we continue to wait, the more expensive things become. As everyone understands, the supply chain globally has been affected by the pandemic. And as a result of the supply chain being affected, cost of steel, the cost of cement, the cost of wood, the cost of labor have all increased significantly. So I think that each moment we continue to kick this can down the road, we're going to only be putting more of a financial burden on our residents, as well as not having these amenities available for our residents. So I like to propose that, one, we look at the most affordable solution. I understand that, having had conversation with staff, that there are some problems, possibly some possible problems with the land at Church Road. There could be some water issues, storm water that would, and systems that would need to be put in place, which could drive the cost of putting an ice arena on Church Road. But I'd be interested in seeing those numbers from staff. I'm open to putting the ice arena, building that facility at our existing golf course. Then, once we have that ice arena complete and ready to be delivered to our residents, then we demolish the existing ice arena and erect basketball courts there. The infrastructure is in place for courts. We have at the existing ice arena, we have water, we have sewer, we have gas and electric, and we have parking. And if we were to take a look, because I'm someone, as everyone knows, I hate waste. If we were to take a look at the existing Church Road property, I like if we as a council could direct staff to looking at utilizing the existing Church Road property for solar farms. It would produce zero traffic, additional traffic on Church Road. I do have concerns about traffic on Church Road because of the project that is coming in at the airport. I believe that's 600 homes that are being built there. So that's going to be additional traffic on Church Road. There isn't a lot of infrastructure on Church Roads, such as what's on 197, that could support traffic growth by the ice arena being built at the golf course. I am very concerned about that. I know that, in fact, that a solar farm at the existing Church Road site would not draw cars but yet, you know, we could be doing something that's environmentally friendly, yet helping residents by accumulating solar power, the energy that is generated from the solar power, we could sell back to the grid and maybe help residents pay their electric bills. I don't know how that would all work in detail, but I'm sure we can come up with some sort of program for that as well. But I do know, and I want to say this again, that I would like very much to bring this to some closure tonight, to take care of both ICE and courts, because this has been going on entirely too long. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, staff and all. But I like us to direct staff to doing that and finding the cheapest, less financial burden on our residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman, I would like to inform you, and I had gotten feedback from a city that the covenant that we have on that property on Church Road limits it to recreational use. So,
well, maybe we might want to put our
go back and look at that.
And ability, and go back and maybe change that covenant.
Understood. Understood.
Yes.
Understood.
So maybe we might want to amend that covenant. And I know where we said that it was just for recreation, but covenants can be changed, and we can change it to equip and outfit a complete solar farm there, something that draws zero traffic, but definitely is good for our community as well as the environment.
Understood. I just wanted to make sure that you, that I had looked at, and we will have a chance to address that as well. But thank you so much. I'd like to go to council member from District 1 at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with most of the sentiments that have been expressed so far. We have, unfortunately, a limited pot of money and limited financial resources. One of the things I don't like about this building is it is so ostentatious in this room that people walk in and assume that we have the hundreds of millions of dollars needed to build, you know, a lot more as far as recreational facilities than we can actually afford to build. I totally respect that over the last almost 10 years now, a lot of parents and a lot of athletes have been coming in here very passionately fighting for their sport, for their programs. Oftentimes these are activities that make up a huge part of their life and define who they are and their social circles. And I get that, and I appreciate that, and I love the passion of all of our athletes and all of their parents who've been letting us know very, very, very passionately over these last few years, you know, what their concerns are. There was a time when we were literally contemplating doing it all. 2 rinks, 3 courts, and the fact was it was just not financially viable. We have slowly whittled down our scope and our vision since then, and now we're literally talking just a one-for-one replacement of an existing beloved facility that is in bad need of a lot of renovations. We now have 2 firms that have given us clear numbers on what those renovations cost. They are staggering. It still remains cheaper to build a new facility, and so I'm very much in favor of a single rink. Right now it sounds like our only discussion is kind of location. There are challenges with Church Road. There are other places that are more advantageous, and staff has presented on alternative locations before that the city already owns, and that I think could very well work. If there's anything I've learned with absolute certainty in the last 10 years, as we've seen these debates play out, it's that there is 0 solutions that keep everyone happy, and that's just an unfortunate reality. But I do think it's time that we make a decision. I think it's time that we put the ease and anxiety of the ICE community to rest and move forward with the construction of at least a single sheet facility to replace our existing aging one, which we've had now for many decades. Thank you.
Thank you again. At this time, I'd like to move to Councilman in District 2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of, or actually one quick question for city staff. Do we have any ability to ascertain the cost differential between the Church Road location with its current form, which is partially developed in terms of the stormwater management and the remaining infrastructure, as compared to the golf course location? And what do you think it would take to get there?
Well, no, we don't know that, and it would take an architectural firm with geotechnical engineers to look at both sites to tell us that, and and with some certainty. The problems with, of course, with Church Road is that Church Road property has wetlands on it, and that is a whole new issue because you have to coordinate and get approvals from the Corps of Engineers, and that site has significant amount of stormwater challenges. Now, the fact that we are considering one sheet of ice and a facility as opposed to what we were considering before was two, that reduces the amount of surface of concrete, and therefore that will reduce the runoff, some of the runoff problems, theoretically, but we wouldn't know until we had Jose or some other civil engineer go out and take a look at both those sites and do that comparison. And there would be some, I suspect, some stormwater issues, runoff issues that we have to manage because of the rules at the golf course. We don't know what that is until we have somebody out there looking at that too.
So with the Church Road location, we had resolved those for the existing or the previous layout, correct? We had
Worked through the process, and there was some stormwater mitigation that had gone on, but it was not complete. But we knew, based on the circumstances, what we had to do and how much it was going to cost us. And it was a lot. It was over $1 million just to deal, or nearly $2 million to deal with those two things in that particular project. But we don't know. We don't know about the golf course. So.
Do we know how much of that work was actually completed up at the Church Road location?
I don't have a percentage in regards to what was completed in regards to that, and ultimately it would need to be looked at again with a new facility, depending on the size, how it is laid out on the site, which direction the water would fall. If you put the building in a different location compared to the parking because the facility was different, it could have some different implications in regards to that.
So from a staff standpoint, you don't have a clear indication yet as to which would be a more affordable solution?
No, we don't. Well, we haven't done that study. But we can do that if that's the direction. But that would be an expense.
Just I'll add my 2 cents worth. I am very much in favor of us moving forward with a single sheet of ice. I think we have a partially developed asset that may be of value to us in terms of using that as a starting point. I would expect, and it may be maybe true or may not. I would expect that we would be in a position to have some of that cost already covered as a result of the existing development, and I would assume that we would get some economic advantage from building there. And I know that the golf course, of course, presents its own challenges, as we have literally no information on that location as well. So I'm very much in favor of moving forward with the single sheet of ice. I prefer to move forward with some understanding of what's more expensive. I think we could end up in a situation where you have $1 million or $2 million difference in cost based on the property selected. And so I'd really be interested in ascertaining which of these two is truly the best solution, and if it makes sense to spend $50,000 to $60,000 to ascertain that up front, I think that's money well spent. and, you know, may save us a bunch of money by avoiding work that needs to be done at church or taking advantage of work that's already been done at church to help with the bottom line cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. We'll go to Councilwoman from District 4, Councilwoman Ndubamadu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I have no questions at this time. I think my colleagues have asked all great questions, and I'll save my comments for debate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, City Manager, I see Byron isn't here tonight. I had a couple of questions for him, but I'm sure you could take a swing at it.
He's online if we want him. He's right there. It's virtually BM.
Byron, are you on there?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Oh, great, great. How you doing, Mr. Matthews? All right, I wanted to get a couple.
Fine.
Great. I think I'd like to ask a couple of questions that go. One of my concerns is where we are financially. And I know as we talk about doing the ice in the courts and we're moving forward on that, and I think we're all in agreement, probably just trying to figure out where. But my question to you has to do with where we are financially as a city. And if we take this on right now, what kind of financial position would that put us in if we committed those funds right now as it stands with our fund balance?
Very good question, Mayor. First of all, let me reassure Council that the city of Bowie is in great shape, financially speaking. We have a significant fund balance, and we're able to pay our bills on time, and there are no real outlying issues that would cause major problems to the city's financial structure. However, we must look at our capital projects and realize that out of all of the things that our constituents and residents would like to have, we can't spend the money twice. The capital projects program is funded through general fund transfers. And we have not, since Mr. Lott joined us, and we have been advocating for a budget increase, and we have not done that. So any increases to our cost of operation has been absorbed by our fund balance. Now we must realize that the city does a very good job of controlling its expenditures. So in a budget year, we will tell council that we need X dollars, and once we get to the end of the fiscal year, we tend to be in a more positive position. But with the amount of capital projects that we have in the program, we will definitely be draining our fund balance. And your policy is 25% of the budget expenditures. We should not go below that.
Let me chime in there, Mr. Mayor. Let me chime in here with the financial position. We have the money we have the $11 million that we borrow remaining that could be used for this project. However, what Byron is saying is that in the next budget process, when it comes down to making the transfer to the CIP, that transfer will come from the fund balance rather than that loan fund monies that we use, since it was we used that money for CIP because it was originally designated for CIP projects. Also, our expenditures have exceeded our revenues for the last 4 years, and we expect that to continue. So we can afford to do it. We will not be in any dire situation in the next 2 or 3 years. But what we're going to have to do is take a really close look at our CRP projects next year and to see if it is even reasonable to have them on there, understanding our situation, since we have not had a millage rate increase in coming up on 12 years. Thank you.
Mr. Matthews, I guess where I'm going is just making sure, and I think council appreciates this. We have been told that we have been, in layman's terms, spending more than we've been taking in revenues, and we've been going to our fund balance and using that. And we do have some parameters that we use to maintain our AAA bond rating. My question to you is, if we do this, we have been told by city staff, and we've been advised, and we weren't the first ones, it happened before us, that we will be needing to raise taxes to meet our obligations. Is that correct?
Well, Mayor, I think in any good business program, costs continue to go up. We have not raised our taxes in quite some time.
Yeah.
The value of our property will normally generate close to $1 million per year. But that does not keep pace with the cost of operation.
Okay.
So can we do this without a tax increase? Yes, but only to the extent that you realize by not increasing taxes, when we start looking at 3 and 4 years out, our fund balance will be depleted. We're talking about cash.
Yes.
We're talking about using $11 million cash for this project. Now, my interpretation of how the city has operated and has been able to do what it has done over the years is that we save for these things that we want.
Right.
And that's the whole ideal of PAGA.
Okay.
So if we realize that, okay, we need to start saving money for our capital projects and maybe slow down on some of these other items that are maybe needed but not needed as urgent as the ice arenas or the courts may have you. I would like to also just interject one other thing and make the council pretty clear on this. I think there is a false narrative when it comes to the ice rink about it being self-sustaining. That's a false narrative. The ice rink initially was an enterprise fund because they thought that they could generate enough revenue to manage the ice rink. In 2003, the ice rink was pulled into the general fund because it never made any money. And from 1993 to this year, the city has placed $4.3 million into the ice rink's operation. Now, I looked at Prince George's County and Maryland Park and Planning with the 2 ice arenas that they operate. Their cost of operation of those 2 rinks, as far as salaries are concerned, is only $16,000 different from what we budgeted for our ice arena for this year. The subsidy that the county has for their ice arenas is $1.5 million per year for the 2 ice arenas that they control. That doesn't include that doesn't include the debt service on the $6 million that they just spent on the new ice arena that just opened a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So when we talk about break even as it relates to ice, I think if Prince George's County and Park and Planning could break even on ice and turn that into a profit situation, they would do it. But from what I've seen since I've been here and dealing with the ice arena, it is a project like all other city activities. It needs to be funded with some type of subsidy. The other side of that, you will price yourself out of the market if you actually charge people what it costs to run the ice arena.
All right, thank you. Any other questions going back to the other council members? We'll go kind of the same process. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this point, I'd like to make a motion. Yes, staff question. Yep, I defer to you then. Go ahead.
Before you ask your question, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, I just have a question for Byron. One more question based on the comments you were providing to the mayor. So could you just share with me that, do you agree that we had the funds to build the new ice rink last May before the project was canceled?
Yes, we had the funding in place to build the ice arena under its original schedule, but there were going to be additional funds needed to finish the project, far exceeding the loan or the bond issuance that we received. Mr. Lott just talked about some of the stormwater management issues that had not been resolved.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman. City staff, are we ready? This is going to be a long one, so thank you. I'd like to make a motion directing city staff to initiate the architectural design phase for a single sheet of ice at the golf course location with a design that could potentially facilitate another sheet of ice in the future. Additionally, I'd like for city staff to provide council with a cost for a new facility housing courts on the site of the existing ice rink or additionally on the golf course location.
I'm happy to
I'd
second.
like to second that.
It's been moved and second. Discussion? I'd like clarity on your motion. You're simply asking that city staff look at what the cost would be and give us back an estimate?
City staff, I'll repeat it again and then I'll explain for the viewers at home because I know that was a lot of random policy talk. So the motion is to direct city staff to initiate the architectural design phase for a single sheet of ice at the golf course location with a design that could potentially facilitate another sheet of ice in the future. Additionally, I'd like for city staff to provide council with a cost for a new facility housing courts on the site of the existing ice arena or golf course location. So what we want to do, or what this motion will do, it will appropriate the existing restricted funds that we have to go ahead and build a sheet of ice at the golf course location. Additionally, it's my hope that by the next budget cycle, this council, this body can deliberate and have a cost for a new facility for courts on the existing ice arena location or on the golf location in addition to the ice.
So, in this motion, are you saying that courts are not included?
No, they are. We just need a price. We don't have a price yet. If everyone remembers, last budget cycle, we deferred our study for a facility for courts. What this will do is it will give us an exact price so that in next budget cycle, we can make a decision on not just the location, but the price as well. In addition, I think it's important that this council has a conversation behind the scenes about the mechanisms in which we use to pay for a lot of our amenities. Right now, we're paying for them from the fund balance. And especially when it comes to courts, as Ms. Bridges just pointed out, it is such a county-wide amenity. There's no reason why Prince George's County shouldn't be putting up some dollars for a new court in our city. So as we deliberate that and have those conversations on the back end, I see you looking at me, so I'll defer to you. Go ahead.
I just want to clarify.
We can't hear you. If you could speak
I'm
into the
sorry.
mic a little more. Thank you.
I just want to clarify something about your motion because you might, I'm not sure if you intended to use the terminology, but you said the motion would appropriate funds. So the motion can't appropriate funds?
Yeah,
You'd
no,
have to
the
do that by
motion-
budget
The
amendment?
motion is not to appropriate
Okay.
funds. It's to initiate the architectural design phase.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Anyone?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. I think Councilman Gardner would like to say something, and then I would like to go. This is, from District 4.
Councilmember Gardner, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman Ndevamadu. I second Mayor Pro Tem's motion, Boafo's motion on this. I am fine with just that alone. We move to the remaining funds to build ice at the golf course, an expandable sheet of ice for the possibilities, if need be, to put on a second sheet, and then also directing staff for looking at the existing ice arena for courts to go at that location. I second that motion. Pardon me. I second that motion, Mr. Mayor.
That's a song, right?
It is, the mayor got it.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Ndevamadu.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. First off, I would just like to thank everybody here that's at City Hall that came out to express concerns and share their thoughts with us in regards to the ice arena and many of the other issues that were talked about this evening. I know that there was one on Penn Manor, which I will look into a bit later after this meeting. But I think we've heard a lot of comments this evening, and city staff has done a really great job putting together all of the possible alternatives, and then also just explaining where we are financially. So I want to thank our city manager and also thank Byron Matthews, who did a really good job explaining that. I think there are a couple of things that I want to hit on, because I don't really have any questions per se this evening, because they've answered all of the questions. But we talked about a number of locations this evening, and I know that if you looked in the packet that went out last week for all of our city residents, there were a couple of locations that were being thrown out there. You have the current location on Church Road that I personally believe that isn't a good idea for it to move forward with ICE for the many reasons that staff listed out, and then also for the many infrastructure issues that have been raised in regards to transportation in that area. When you think about the roads and all the development that's coming to that area, there's a lot going on right now that will really impact and impede a lot of the people that currently live in that district, as well as the people who are coming into the city to enjoy this wonderful amenity. So it doesn't necessarily make sense to move forward with Church Road. Okay, so that brings Glen Allen. I really want to talk about Glen Allen because Glen Allen happens to be located in District 4, specifically in one of the neighborhoods called Glen Allen. Currently today, Glen Allen only has one major entrance right next to the Glen Allen Park, and that is the entrance for that particular neighborhood that sits off of Mitchellville Road. Now, while Mitchellville Road has its already issues when it comes to speeding, when it comes to traffic, not necessarily that it's heavily saturated with cars, but more so the speeding and the safety in that area isn't the best right now because of because of just the infrastructure that we need to continue to have conversations with about the county and Maryland State Transportation, but there is only one entrance, and that's the only green space in that area, that portion of District 4. So technically what you'd be doing is taking away that entire green space and then using that one entrance that is for that particular neighborhood that already enters, that already kind of has its own issues, to then put another facility there to take away from those residents. So I don't necessarily think that's a good idea either. Then it brings us to the golf course. I think that really honestly makes the most sense, and that's a wonderful proposed idea. I think the reason why that makes a lot of sense is because when you look at the transportation infrastructure that's currently over there in that particular area, there's a lot of upside that's already there. And yes, there are improvements that will be needed later on down the line, but I think that's something that I have faith in Councilman Esteb and the rest of my colleagues to continue to support Councilman Esteb, to continue to work with our county and our state partners to improve that area. But it already has that existing infrastructure. You have the golf course that's right there. And to be honest with you, as Byron has mentioned this evening, and just the way that we think about recreation in the city of Bowie, we've really got to come up with something. For the last couple of years, we've gone out of our way to really, really provide a lot of great amenities to our residents that have made Bowie a fabulous place, which is why it continues to grow, which is why developers are so attracted to the city. However, the problem is, because taxes haven't been raised in 10 years, there haven't been other revenue sources that have come into the city besides development annexation, and that's at no fault of anybody, to be honest with you. We really have to start looking at the way that we think about recreation in the city and the way that we honestly just approach the way that we make money for the city in general. And when I say make money, I'm talking about increasing our fund balance to continue to be able to provide you with a lot of these amenities that we have in the city. But until we can really rethink the way that we look at recreation and the way that we also look at the services that we provide, there's a lot of duplication that's going on right now. As you heard Byron, we have a healthy finance, but in a couple of years, the fund balance will be depleted if we don't come up with something. And yes, there will be people that are gonna, channel their sentiments towards raising taxes. I happen to not be one of those people that ever believes in raising taxes. But what that means is my colleagues and myself, for the very reasons why you elected us, we're gonna have to start thinking outside of the box. We're gonna have to get innovative. Something is gonna really have to start to give for us to be in a better financial situation so that we don't have to raise taxes to continue to provide all of these amenities. And so that's something that I really want a lot of the residents that are listening to this tonight, a lot of the people that are coming into the city of Bowie to enjoy that. While we are really proud and really excited to continue to provide these services, we have to continue to find a way to pay for these services and not do that on the backs and on the burden of our residents who are already struggling through a pandemic and struggling through so many other life-changing events that are happening right now because the last 2 years have been generally crazy. And we're gonna have to start putting more faith into our elected leaders here, and I'm talking to my colleagues here, to really start prioritizing finding ways to think outside of the box to really revitalize the way that we think about city services, because in a couple of years, we won't have any money to think about city services. Because as you can see, a lot of the recreational amenities that we are in do not generate income for the city and actually end up taking a lot of income. And so I think at this current time, the way that I see it from District 4 and the constituents that I represent, I'm really happy and proud that there are so many people that are willing to come spend their money in the city of Bowie and come enjoy your time with us. I think, we made a promise to the ICE community to move forward and provide another sheet of ice when the previous ICE arena was canceled. And that's a promise that I'm gonna stand behind. And so I think I love the motion that Councilman Boafo made, because it is us keeping our promise, but it's also us acknowledging that there are other amenities that do need to be provided, like courts, like Ms. Bridges mentioned, like courts, because particularly in District 4, I know that I have a lot of residents who have a lot of children that absolutely love courts, but we're not providing that amenity today. And that's not fair, because there are a lot of tax dollars that are coming out of this community in particular, as well as the very many other communities in the city of Bowie. So I really want you guys to remember this moment, remember these meetings. I am sorry for what it took for us to get here, to be honest. I'm very, very sorry from the bottom of my heart, but I also urge you to hold me and also my council members accountable that we need to do something to think about other ways to create and generate revenue in the city so that we can continue to provide these fabulous services and so that we can continue to be the thriving community that we hope to continue to be. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Pro Tem?
Thank you so much. I just want to set the record straight, because I know, unfortunately, for really a decade and some change, this has been such a divisive issue My hope is that tonight this will be the end of the forever conversation around recreation, especially between two sports that have so much in common when it comes to building a community and building a bond between each other. But once again, I understand that over the last decade it's been a tough conversation, and I want to set a couple things straight as we move forward, just because I know this has been such a big topic, not just in Bowie, but across the county and even across the state at some points in time. First, we should be celebrating how financially healthy we are as a city. Not many cities in America get to say that, A. Not many cities in our own county get to say that, B. Not many cities in Prince George's County and Maryland get to say that, and it's our fiduciary responsibility to be clear with the citizens at home that this city is in financial hands. I want to talk about taxes for a second, because I know this is going to be a conversation that happens over the next year and change with this council. But let's be clear, ice nor basketball caused the tax conversation. It's a conversation we've had since we came into office. It's a conversation the last council had. The reality is that there was a ballot initiative, and I'm going to forget the year, in which we voted for a police department. Our city wanted a police department that was going to manage our folks in the city and keep us safe, and we're really proud of the officers that we have protecting us. What was on that ballot was a tax increase. It never happened. At some point, it has to pay for itself, and that's the reality. So what I don't want to happen is this issue become more divisive as we talk about taxes. I've never heard of a city, really, for 12 years that hasn't seen a tax increase. And that's not me going on the record saying I'm supporting one at this moment or that I'll support one in the future. I'm just talking about the facts of our fiscal health in the city. But understand that we do have money in the budget to pay for the things that we're looking to pay for. I want to talk about Church Road versus 197 for a quick second here. As you guys know, when we first came into office, or maybe it was even during the election, someone tragically lost their life on Church Road. One of the first things this council did in the budget process was try to make a good faith effort with the county to ensure that they expanded the road. Much to no one's surprise, that never happened. The S-curve is not expanded, Church Road is not expanded. Luckily, my colleague, Councilwoman Ndeb Umadu, has had some real conversations with Secretary Slater, Secretary of Transportation, about 197 and Church Road. And if not in this administration, hopefully in the next administration, we get some clarity on what happens there. But you can understand why a lot of us up here don't want to see anything there. And I agree with Councilman Gardner on even turning it into green space or solar space. I think that's a great idea and it should be explored a little bit more. 197 has the infrastructure to support it. And as we continue to have the forever conversation about 197, again, 20 years at this point that we've been having that conversation, hopefully this council and this body is able to work with our partners at the county and state level. Through this whole process, at least the 2 years that I've been elected here, folks have talked about people outside of the city coming and using our amenities. Look, frankly, I welcome anyone who wants to use our amenities. Spend more time in Bowie. Spend your tax dollars, your hard-earned money in Bowie. I want you here, right? And that's the same for both ICE and for courts folks. There's no reason to shun one community out from the other. And I want to say to everyone watching, both Bowie residents or non-Bowie residents, Bowie is open for business and we want you to come here. There's no reason you should stay away, and you should understand that tonight is a signal and a sign that you all are welcome to Bowie, no matter where you're from in the state or in the county. I want to talk about the extra sheet of ice that I mentioned in this motion tonight. I know a lot of people are going to think that's immediate. No, it's not. It means that next council or this council or whoever in the near future, 10 years from now, can make that decision. But 50 years ago, that wasn't the case, right? Our current facility doesn't have the infrastructure and the ability to do that. And we're saying, 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 50 years down the road, this new location will be able to do that. So again, look, we're coming out of this pandemic, hopefully. And as we come out of this pandemic, we're going to have serious conversations about the economic health of the city, not the fiscal health of the city, but as you look across the city, we have to talk about the economic piece in a serious way. And so I hope this puts a pin in the forever conversation about recreation. I hope we're able to move on to other matters. And I hope that I hope both communities at some point can come together and make amends, because I think that's important as we move forward. But Mr. Mayor, while I have the floor, I'd like to call to question and debate and move on to a vote.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the question. And Madam City Clerk, we'd like to have it as a roll call. And I would like to go first, and I would like to make sure for the record my comments on my vote. And that is, while we can have respectful differences and opinions on the need for the ICE in the courts and those things, I think one thing that is not debatable is that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. I believe we need to move forward with ICE. I believe we need to move forward with courts, but I do not believe this is the time to make that decision to do it. Because what I know and we all understand is that when I first said about us putting off doing ICE in courts, because I also put up courts, it was because we're in a pandemic and we haven't come out of that yet. And the reality is we've talked about financial health, and that's why I'm saying this now. We have to look out for the financial health of the city. And the financial health of the city says that we eventually are going to have to raise taxes. But coming out of a pandemic potentially is not the time to do that, nor do I want to see us exacerbate the issue at this time. So not only are we coming out of the pandemic or hoping to, but we still don't know where we're going to be. And we also have not capped the cost of the ice rink, one sheet of ice or two, or the courts. So though we're talking about using some of the money we already have, we don't know how much it may end up costing us. And so based upon those things, I would have to, only in good conscience, vote no at this time.
Mayor Pro Tem Boffo,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
A strong yes.
Councilmember Harrison,
Very strong yes.
Councilmember Esteve,
Yes?
Councilmember Wolfley,
Aye.
Councilmember Ndebumadu.
Aye.
We have a 6-1, Mayor. So it passes.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you, everyone. We will now go into our old business, our second point, and that's the adoption of Resolution R5421, awarding a contract for the City of Bowie branding initiative.
Before we go further, Mr. Mayor, this was moved from the consent agenda to this agenda, and Una is prepared to answer any
I'm
questions.
sorry, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll say it again. I said this was moved from the consent agenda 2 meetings ago to this agenda, and Una's prepared to answer the questions, any questions, or if you would like, she can tell you how we got to this point. What is the favor of the council on this issue?
Yeah, and I think thank you so much with that, because I think a part of the question was in trying to, for lack of a better way to put it, buying local. I know there was a Maryland company, and this was a out-of-country company, and I'm sure you can explain. Would you please just share for everyone with that, how we got to that point?
I'll hand it over to Una in a minute, but there was a process, and we are trying to get the best for our dollars. Una, start.
Good evening, council, and everyone here this evening.
Good evening.
Before you use a resolution to allow the city manager to negotiate a contract with Trajectory Brands out of Toronto. The RFP went to 90 firms, to 90 individuals representing 60 firms, and 11 chose to submit bids. But before I get into the bids and how the selection went, let me just say how we got here with this process. After this council was elected in November of 2019, I had conversations with several of you about unifying the city. A lot went on during the election, and we talked about how to bring the city together, whether in gestures and in real actions. And one of the things that came out of that were the 4 listening sessions that you asked us to hold. And as you recall, they were very well attended. People had a lot to say on a variety of issues, from public safety to litter to traffic, but also a lot about their city and just how proud they were of it and how they wanted it to be more and how they wanted us to help them connect with each other, build community here, build on the positives, and to promote it to others, to get other people to move here, to improve the economic development by promoting the city. There was a lot of talk about that, about the kind of businesses that were here and the kind of retail establishments, and then promote it as a tourist destination. So we took that, listened to what you had to say, and we brought forward a proposal for a branding initiative. We brought it to you on the agenda in FY21, and you approved it. Because of the pandemic, we didn't actually accomplish it in FY21, so we're back. We went out to bid in May, got the responses, spent a good long time going through the 11 responses. I have a binder about this thick that they were quite detailed, very thoughtful. As I said, there were 11. There were 4 that were from Maryland, 7 that were I'm sorry, 4 in Maryland, 7 that weren't, 3 or 4 MBEs, women-owned. And what we were looking for was, for the money, this was a fixed bid contract, what was the best proposal we could get for the money? Who gave us everything that we asked for? And one of the key things was to get as much public input as we could through the process. So the company in this trajectory, which I'll talk about in a second, they really came through strongly in that, and they had some very creative ways to do it. We had a team of people go through them. 2 members of my staff, the economic development director and me, reviewed every single one of them. And then once we made an initial pass, Mr. Mears also went through the ones that we had kind of narrowed down. And, you know, we were looking for, were they completely responsive? Did they include all the elements? Some of them left a lot to be determined in their proposals, and that just really wasn't very helpful to us when you're trying to get details about what will be done and who will do it. So we went through the process, and this trajectory, they're out of Canada. They do a lot of work in the United States. Several of their staff members are dual citizens. They did the branding that helped Northern Virginia, Arlington, get the Amazon project. So they connected all those communities together. I forget what it was called, something Landing, Arlington Landing, I think. And they were successful in getting that Amazon building headquarters project, Amazon 2. They also have done branding for DuPont Circle, Capitol Hill, Congress Heights in DC, and they had a very creative, community-focused proposal. So I think I will stop there and then answer the questions that you have about it, rather than going into more detail.
I believe what you did, but I know from my perspective, is you truly answered what you were looking for, what the response was, what you received, and it shows that you and the rest of the city staff did a very diligent job in selecting what you think is best for the city for branding purposes. So I just want to say thank you for that. And I don't know if anyone else on council has any questions at this time?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Is that Councilman Gardner? Oh, Wolfie, I'm sorry, Councilman, please go right ahead.
Quick question, Una. The recommendation is for, apologize, the recommendation is for this firm. Given where we are with COVID, are they using local offices for this, or are there staff members located in Canada?
So they have people who will travel. As I said, they're dual citizens, so they will have no trouble coming into the country. You know, we're just going to have to see where it goes with how much we do in person, but we can do virtual focus groups if we need to. But, you know, I think they will come down here and they will do their own research in the community and talk to people at Bowie Town Center and do things like that and have different groups. They'll be meeting with you guys to get your input. And then...
So I guess my only concern, I don't have a problem with using with the firm near as I can tell, they're probably best qualified. I just want to make sure that they're able to, in the time of COVID, cross borders without problems.
So I heard on the news as I was coming here this evening that as of November 1st, the U.S. will be opening up borders so that European travelers and Canada and Mexico can travel back and forth without restriction. So hopefully things don't get worse and we lock down more, but I think we'll be fine on that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Go right ahead, Councilwoman.
I just really want to say to Una, just really big applaud, and kudos. This firm is really great. And I think on the same thread of the things that I just talked about in my last little soliloquy that I gave there, it's really time. As a community, we need to figure out what it is that we stand for, what direction that we're going in. So a lot of these next steps that we do and perform as a council can have some sort of vision and some sort of direction, so we know what it is we're going towards and what it is that we're trying to accomplish, so that you can continue to hold us accountable. And so I think that this is a great next step. I think we've needed this for so long. We've talked about it for almost a year and a half now. Really excited that it's getting done, and just really, really impressed with the firm that staff ended up going with. The only thing that I want to just say out there for all my residents as well is, I know they worked with, they've done a ton of work in Virginia, they've done a ton of work in Washington, D.C., and for those of you who don't know about a lot of the things that have gone on in Pentagon City as well as DuPont Circle, it's completely done a 360, and it has attracted a lot more businesses, a lot more opportunities since their rebrand that they've had over the last couple of years. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to have a firm that is truly somewhat local, that really understands the DMV area and can really, really help us find a unique differentiator, because we are one of the most prominent and best cities in the United States of America. The only thing that I want to say is, as we go into this, and I have no doubt that staff will do this, I just want to make sure that we do have clear, defined and outcomes that we can work with as a council. Because I know sometimes when you work with creative firms, they come up with a lot of these great graphics and great logos and all these great things that sometimes aren't fully always tangible for us to really understand, who are we, what's our brand, and that kind of thing. And so I just want to make sure that remains a part of this process as we move forward. But other than that, I think phenomenal job on the selection, and I don't really have any questions.
Thank you. I'm probably the only one, as I look around the room, that remembers the last time we did any kind of branding for the city. It was about 1995, 96. And it was a logo that said, Bowie, now that's living. And it had a little kite, and nobody could figure out how it was connected. It was a little kid on a kite, because there wasn't any implementation with it. They designed a little cutesy logo, and that was it. It stopped there. This is a full-fledged plan of research, development, implementation, follow-up, testing it, getting feedback, making sure it's what people are asking for, and then adjusting it as needed. So there's There's feedback built into the process all the way through.
I love that, and I think, thank you so much for that, Una, because I think it'll go hand in hand with our, just all the things that we're trying to do with economic development, a lot of the things that we're trying to do with attracting businesses and bringing more opportunities to the community for our residents, as people are switching jobs and upskilling, and you know, goes hand in hand with so many projects that we're working on that I think could really just give us a true strategic vision on how to truly brand ourselves when John Henry is out here talking to certain companies and when he is articulating what the future of the city of Bowie is going to be and what will continue to become. So I think that's spot on, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councilman Steph?
Yeah, I appreciate Councilmember Ndibumadu's comments. I too am very interested in making sure we keep tangible benefits in mind as we go through this process. I'm personally always a little bit skeptical of branding when it comes to municipalities, right? I just think we need to make sure we have a specific idea in mind of what value we're going to get for this brand. Having a new logo or just, you know, coming up with something that mostly insiders are going to value and everyone else is going to shrug at, in my mind, is not the best use of 90 grand. But to Councilmember Ndibumadu's point, if we are doing this with a target audience in mind, whether that's attracting businesses, whether that's attracting tourism to certain places, if we can really identify a tangible return on investments, then I'm 100% for it. And it sounds like, based on the diligence that you've done and based on what we know about you and your work, that that is a very reasonable expectation from this process. And I suspect you would agree with that?
Yes, we have high expectations. They will be doing a lot of work for
Wonderful.
for
And
the
it's
money.
in your hands, and so I feel better about it. And I do appreciate everything that you've done and continue to do. The feedback that we get on the city communications continues to be very positive. I personally love taking credit for your work, so thank you so much for that. And I look forward to continuing to take credit for everything you do for a very long time.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we can take action on any other comments? At this point, I believe we can entertain a motion to accept.
Sure. I move that we adopt Resolution R 54-21.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. Next item is adoption of ordinance 0-4-21. City Attorney, would you?
Give her a moment.
Thank you.
I'm not used to being back in person. So over the last several months, it has become apparent that our procurement policy, which requires advertisement in certain circumstances, needed to be updated to reflect the fact that the newspapers in the city were no longer publishing in the same formats as they were publishing at the time that the policy was adopted. So this ordinance will amend Section 19A-4, competitive bidding, to allow the publication of required notices in social media, the city's social media accounts, and/or electronic news services that report regularly on city news. It also provides in subsection D that for bid openings to be handled electronically by video conference or in person in a room of sufficient size. and it sets forth the circumstances under which a bid does not have to be publicly opened, where the bids are for services or other contracts for which an award is made based in whole or in part on subjective evaluations, rather than price.
Thank you. Quick question. Will we have a list of places that we seek to post these postings? And what I mean by that is, will we go through a process with some of the local magazines or online areas? Will we, and I don't know if that's an answer it's something we can answer now, but I'm assuming we'll be able to do it so that we can reach a wide variety of people and a lot of inclusion in doing that.
I'm going to defer to the city manager and the city clerk on that because that's an implementation question, and I don't see any reason why that couldn't occur, but I'm not an administrator and I don't want to commit them to something that can't happen.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions, anyone?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman?
I just want to piggyback on what you just mentioned. I guess I'm a little concerned about some of our residents that may not, subscribe to digital media at this time. I just wondered, is that something that we're looking at, or any options for those people, or have we heard any comments or feedback from them regarding communications from the city that they're not receiving because it's digital? So far, Una?
So, and this is not specifically to do with bids, but in general, we've gotten a few calls since the Blade stopped being published, just saying, how am I going to get my news? I don't have the internet. And so what my staff and I were just talking about this morning is we are going to try printing some of the copies of the Bowie Spotlight, and we'll have them at city facilities, including the Senior Center, Ice Arena Gym here, and then at the 2 libraries. And we'll see how that goes, whether people even pay attention to them there. And, I don't think there's very many. We have according to the census numbers, we have a very high rate of connected people in the city. It was above, I think it was 94% of our city is connected to the internet. So we're not talking about a large group, but I don't want to dismiss them.
I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that everybody's addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other council members? Hearing none, then I will entertain a motion to adopt.
Mayor, just for the record, this was a public hearing item. But
Okay, did we have anyone who was to speak?
No, we did not have any comments. I just wanted to make it
Okay,
noted
so
for the record.
I declare the public hearing closed now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Having said that, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance.
And Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance O-4-21.
Second.
It's been moved and properly. Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries. We will now move into new business and the preliminary master plan for the Bowie, Mitchellville, and vicinity. And we will turn it over to Joe Minor.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Joe Minert, the city's planning director, and this is the public hearing on the preliminary master plan, which has been prepared for the Bowie area by the Park and Planning Commission. I wanted to point out that there will be a public hearing, a joint public hearing of the county council, sitting as the district council and the county planning board on the 4th of October at 5 p.m. And if anyone wants to participate, that is the hearing of record at the county level, and you must register in advance to be able to participate in that meeting. and the record will close officially on the 19th of October. So what we're doing this evening is hopefully getting council to agree to a position statement that we can send to the county's hearing, and I will actually present that statement at the hearing on October 4th. You have our memo, which is dated September 16th. You also have a memo in your packet from the Bowie Advisory Planning Board. The Advisory Planning Board held a hearing last Tuesday on the 14th of September on the master plan. They did have one person who spoke during their hearing. Mr. John Teasdale provided some comments. And at the end of the hearing, the APB decided to accept the staff recommendation and forward that recommendation to you. And I'm going to present the staff recommendation tonight. Just by way of background, I wanted to mention that this particular master plan has a time horizon that they're planning for the year 2047. So it's a long-range plan for the growth of this Bowie and the surrounding area. The Park and Planning Commission did come and brief council several times over the past couple years on this effort. There's been a great deal of community engagement as part of this process, and if you look on page 26 of the plan, they actually outline that they had 18 different stakeholder meetings with stakeholder groups, 12 public meetings, and 8 community chat meetings, as well as a lot of other interactive public engagement. So this plan really did go through a very transparent process. The memo that we've provided to you includes 4 tables at the end of the memo which address some of the maps and some of the recommendations. This plan, the basis of the plan is, or the crux of the plan is that it contains things that are called strategy recommendations. These are actual actions that the plan is recommending that be taken in various topical areas. And there's 340 strategy recommendations. And what staff did in terms of preparing for this analysis was we compiled a document called the City Staff Review, which was placed on their website, which isolates all 340 strategy recommendations. We also compared the master plan recommendations to your own land use and development review policies. And so we did a side-by-side comparison, and this document is also on the website. So in the end, what we did was we pulled all of the recommendations that we made forward and put them in the first table that's attached to the memo. What I'd also like to mention is that the memo has several discussion areas in it. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them, but I can discuss with you some of the highlights and some of the organization of this memo. One of the things we did right off in section 2 on page 2 was that we pulled from the tables some of the major recommendations that we feel that council should support, and there are a lot of them. There's a lot of content in this master plan that the city would find very satisfactory, and we feel that these items should be called out specifically on items or pages 2 through 5. Beginning at the bottom of page 5, we start our analysis of some of the issues that this plan is presenting to us. We've noted that there are very few areas where the plan is recommending additional high-density residential zoning. And as council is aware, there was a zoning ordinance change with the new rewrite ordinance, which permits multifamily and townhouse developments in the shopping center areas. And I know council has a policy to resist that. But that's really not a subject for debate as part of this master plan because it's already a given. It's already in the zoning ordinance rewrite. But council can have some effect in this plan by asking that the Park and Planning Commission strike some of the policies that encourage that to happen. So we are recommending on page 6 opposing a number of policies and strategies, getting to the point that council has made repeatedly about higher density residential development in the shopping centers. There's another location where the plan actually does propose new residential zoning, and that is in the Zug Road area of Old Town Bowie, just to the south of Old Town. It's an industrial area now, and the plan is recommending rezoning that area to the CGO zone, which would be that shopping center zone that would allow the multifamily units. And staff is recommending that the council should partially support that. On the areas, the parcels that are closest to Old Town Bowie, there is some potential there for redevelopment, but we don't believe the entire area should be changed from industrial to CGO because there is a need for some of the industrial land uses up there, some of the contractors, businesses and things that provide essential services to our population. So we made that recommendation on page 6 of the report. On page 6 and 7, going into page 8, we talk about the concept for the Bowie Center. And this master plan is recommending a slight enlargement of the Bowie Center boundaries. Essentially, it's the Bowie Town Center now, the Bowie Gateway Center, and Melford. And this plan was recommending extending it just to the north side of Route 197 across from the Bowie Town Center retail. Staff recommends a much larger area. We conducted a study of the sort of the center portion of the city where all of the different land uses exist, and we believe that it would be prudent to plan for the future for a larger town center boundary as well as a core area. The core area is where you would provide the most intense development, and this master plan really calls for the core area just being the town center retail parcel itself, and we believe it should be, the core area should go on both sides of 197, on all 4 sides of the intersection, down 197, up to and including the Bowie Gateway, and the retail portion of Melford, the very front part of Melford where you have the office buildings and the hotels, that's kind of a gateway property or section to the town center. So we recommend a much larger area for the core than what is proposed in the plan. We also identified a couple of other properties and recommendations that affect city property along the Superior Lane area, and also the Bowie Gateway Center, where there were some recommendations for improvements on public properties. We feel that it's premature to really plan for that. It's a city-owned property, and the city was not really consulted with that. If you look at section F of the memo on page 10, there's a property located along Mitchellville Road at Peach Walker Drive. And this is a small piece of property, about 5 acres, that was proposed for some recommended higher density residential. And by that, the plan recommends townhouse densities on that vacant parcel. You could probably get about 30 townhouse units. We've talked with the property owner in the past, and it really, to staff, is an extension of the Lake Village Manor development, which is already existing townhouse community. So this would just be kind of a final phase to that. So staff recommends supporting that residential medium-high land use recommendation on that parcel. We also had a couple of recommendations about transportation facilities. Council has had a policy for years that there should be a master planned roadway in the vicinity north of Bowie State University that would connect from Maryland 197 to Maryland Route 3 in Anne Arundel County. It would cross the Patuxent River, but it would provide a vital connection for cross-county traffic so that the traffic would not have to use Maryland Route 450 as it does now, and it also would help to support the concept of a transit-oriented development near the university. So that's already something that's in the county's master plan of transportation and in the Bowie State MARC sector plan, and we would like to recommend that this plan include it because it currently does not include it. Also, a transportation recommendation regarding Central Avenue, Maryland 214, between Jennings Mill Drive and US 301. Staff is recommending a downgrading of the status of the roadway from an expressway, which is a fully controlled access roadway, to an urban arterial. And by making it an urban arterial, the road would be more similar to like Annapolis Road, where you have a lot of more opportunities to create pedestrian-friendly safety measures, such as complete streets, enhanced crosswalks, and our consultant that we had recently completed a pedestrian overpass feasibility study in that area. So with the development of South Lake just to the south side of Maryland 214, which is in the city now, there's a real need to make sure that we have safe and direct access for pedestrians and bicyclists. So that's recommendation H on page 11. We also found a few things that were not covered by the development review policies in this plan. We listed those under section I, one of which was the smart cities and smart technology solutions policy that council recently added. That's not addressed by the master plan, and we would like them to include that. And then finally, we had recommendations about the land use map, which are mainly corrections or clarifications to the map. And the master plan has a section called monitoring and evaluation towards the end of the plan. And what it does is it provides certain key variables, but really does not provide the methodology in the plan for how those variables for measuring success, how they were calculated. And furthermore, it does not really give you the current status of those variables. So these are things that the plan is recommending that we track as a way of looking back on the performance of the plan, but we really believe that they should publish the methodology for measuring each of those 7 indicators and what data is currently available for the indicators so that we have a benchmark when this plan gets approved. So just to wrap up, we recommend support. There are a lot of good things in this plan, as I mentioned. There are a number of things that we feel should be fine-tuned and addressed to deal with City Council policy, and the 4 tables that are in the back are really the essence of the things that get to the items that we want to support or oppose that were in line with Council's policies. And so I'll stop there, Mayor, if there are any questions. This is a public hearing item, and I'd be happy to answer any questions Council may have.
Well, do we have any comments? Okay.
Yes, Mayor, we did receive one via email, which was forwarded to council earlier, and then we do have one for this evening here.
Okay, so we're declaring the public hearing open, correct? And I will call John Teasdale. Good evening.
Good evening, John Teasdale. I'm a resident of Midwood Lane in Bowie. And I had 3 comments I want to make. Basically, I support the staff report, and I'm here to in support of that. There's 3 things I wanted to mention. First is the concept of creating an urbanized core activity center around the Bowie Town Center area, I think, is a good one, and it does align with the county 2035 plan, which basically supports focusing development on centers rather than just suburban sprawl into undeveloped regions of the county. And so staff has recommended to expand the boundaries of this core town center area, and I do support that step. The master plan does propose multifamily development, housing development in the neighborhood malls, and this I do not support. We're talking about Bowie Plaza, Free State, Marketplace, and Pointer Ridge. And I think in those cases, I don't think that we should be putting that kind of multifamily housing into the single-family neighborhoods in Bowie. But I do support definitely expanding the town center and creating a more urbanized town center with a transportation hub and that sort of thing. The second point I wanted to deal with, I'm switching hats now, and I'm speaking as a volunteer to the food pantry. And there's a proposal, a policy in the Healthy Community section, HC 1.4, that reads as follow. Expand the operation of the City of Bowie's food pantry to distribute fresh produce more than 3 times per week during peak season. This proposal is really ill-conceived and represents a lack of understanding of what the food pantry is or the way it operates. First of all, the food pantry is an independent nonprofit organization and not operated by the city. Second, the pantry already provides a full bag of fresh produce to every client, every visit. And the produce comes from our own garden that we operate on the Kent Hill Center property, as well as we get abundant donations of fresh produce as well. So the current hours of the pantry are suitable to serve all of our clients, so expanding the hours of the pantry would not really result in more produce being distributed. The third point I want to make is here I'm shifting hats now to my role on the Environmental Advisory Committee. Early on in the information gathering process, which Mr. Minor talked about, the EIC proposed that climate change should be an important consideration in developing the master plan. Climate change is really not something that fits neatly into any of the given master plan categories, such as land use planning, transportation, housing, but is actually a pervasive reality that is affected by all of these categories. So this consideration actually was acted upon, and I want to report to you that the writers of the master plan did insert text boxes in each of the categories entitled Sustainability and Climate Change, where they actually wrote a little bit about the connection of that section to climate change. So I want to commend them for that. The writing in those boxes is actually a little weak, so I've actually rewritten some of that, and I will be submitting that for their consideration at the October 4th hearing. A final comment I wanted to make on the climate change aspect is that we felt there should be metrics for monitoring progress toward reducing greenhouse gas emissions and lessening the impact of climate change as a part of the climate plan evaluation process. So we are proposing to suggest, in addition to the indicators of success in the evaluation section of the master plan, and we will also introduce this at the October 4th meeting as private citizens. So that's basically my comments. I understand that the master plan is a development plan. It's not a climate action plan, so we don't really expect that. But we would like, I think that the kind of reports that we get on greenhouse gas emissions from the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, for example, is something that could give a handle on where we're going and the degree to which would be an integrating way of looking whether the sum total of the master plan policies are what the impact they're having on climate change. Okay. So thank you for...
Hey, thank you for your comment.
Yep.
Are there any other speakers, Madam Clerk? Hearing none, we will declare the public hearing closed. At this time, any questions for Mr. Minor or any other staff? Councilman Estelle?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. Just want to say thank you to Mr. Teasdale for his remarks tonight. I also appreciate his taking the time to read through the entire plan. I think you're one of exactly 4 people who have, so we will continue to defer to you if we have any questions about it, and we appreciate your work. For the master plan update, I just want to reiterate some of the points that have been raised by the Multimodal and Public Spaces Subcommittee, on whose behalf Mr. Teasdale spoke a bit this evening. First, something that I feel very strongly about, and I suspect a couple of my colleagues also feel strongly about, we just want to reiterate that under no circumstances is anyone prepared to support any type of upzoning or long-term future development at the Jesuit property. I think I can safely say that both Councilmember Wolfley and I will chain ourselves to the maple trees to prevent that development, old school hippie style. Don't test us. So just want to reiterate that. To Mr. Teasdale's comment about Maryland 214 between Jennings Mills and US 301, I definitely support the reclassification from expressway to urban arterial. Item H, there was a pedestrian overpass feasibility done. In the long term, that will be incredibly helpful to connect the South Lake development to the city in a manner that is multimodal and safe. The Maryland 450 at Free State and Marketplace improvement as a Bowie Main Street concept is something that I absolutely love. I want to reiterate that additional traffic calming and pedestrian improvements that accommodate multiple modes of transportation is wonderful. In the long term, and I know that will get pilloried for this eventually, but in the long term I would love it if 450 could actually be a real main street, you know, where it's less of a strode and more of an actual place where, you know, that's Main Streety. That's a technical term. Let's see, improved connections for the Heritage Trail, TM 23.1, and the Bowie Byway. Definitely support those. Separated pedestrian and bicycle pathway additions to the bridge crossing at the Northeast Rail Corridor of Old Bowie, that is 23.4, would be a major improvement for safety. Old Bowie in general, traffic calming, improved crosswalks would be huge. I know that several of my colleagues and I, as sort of a related note, have spoken to county officials about long-term the possibility of taking over control of certain county roads. I'd like those discussions to continue at the staff level. It's not something that we could do overnight, and we certainly couldn't do it all overnight, but there is certainly an openness at the county level, as I understand it, to some of those conversations. And I'm very excited for our new Public Works Director that I'm throwing that at him 2 weeks onto the job. Let's see. And then CSX Popes Creek Railroad, if that's no longer used as a railroad long-term, turning that into a rail trail would be a wonderful improvement. And that is all I have. And Mr. Meinert, as always, I really appreciate your diligence on this. I know that you always have a lot on your plate, and I'm very grateful for your work.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else with comments at this time or questions? Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have any questions. I did want to say thank you, Mr. Meinert, for all your work on this. As always, wonderful job, and you are greatly appreciated. I read everything here, and I do appreciate Mr. Teasdale's comments, and I concur with a lot of what he said. I thought it was interesting that, you know, in the modernization of Bowie Town Center, we talk about repurposing the current Macy's. I appreciate the forward thinking, and just wanted to say that I also agree that amenities should continue to be privately owned and maintained. And I look forward to additional conversation as this may come to pass when that happens. So I understand that, you know, town centers will definitely look different within the next 5 to 10 years. So I appreciate that recommendation. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments at this time?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman DeFore? Wolfie?
Thank you, sir. A couple of quick questions. The first one revolves around this idea of expanding the boundary for the town center. I'm quite concerned about the Kent Hill neighborhood being included in that, and I'm trying to ascertain what the advantage is for incorporating that neighborhood into the town center. It is geographically separated from the Bowie Town Center area that we really kind of identify, and I'm not quite sure I understand what the what the benefits are, and I'm concerned about the ramifications as well.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your question, Councilmember Wolfley. What staff did when we looked at this, we did a study of the area. We tried to identify some of the characteristics, and I think when you look at the fact that Melford is north of US 50, 301, also you have the Princeton Square townhouses, which are in the northwestern quadrant of the 50-197 interchange. And when you look at Ken Hill Drive and Bel Air Drive, those are collector roads, carry a lot of traffic. And in that respect, it seemed like it was a pretty strong candidate for a boundary, a northern boundary of this area that would make up the diverse area of the town center, so that you had, you know, since the Melford is automatically included, and that is north of Route 50, and then you have the roads of Bel Air Drive, Ken Hill, and then the townhouses at the corner. It just seemed to make logical sense to use that as the northern dividing line. There's really no magic to it, but I think it does make, when you start to look at the variety of land uses, you know, you have mixed use, you have townhouse, you have single family detached, and that pattern kind of repeats itself throughout that defined center as we've defined it. So we really did think it was important to just not settle with what is in the current plan now, because it's very limited in terms of focusing the attention to how the center would grow over time. And that's one of the things the general plan mentioned, that you should plan for your centers. There's a methodology, a matrix that they look at 7 different variables. They evaluate the centers, and then they make recommendations for future growth and improvements. And so what we wanted to try to do is maximize that planning tool within this portion, that sort of the middle third of the city.
So I didn't hear anything. What are the ramifications for the people living in that neighborhood? What's the benefit to them of having a designation of being part of the town center?
It's really just a planning boundary. It doesn't carry with it any additional implications for density or additional. You may receive more attention from, say, a capital improvement planning process. So that I don't think there's any downside to it. It's not going to physically change anything that's there, but in terms of comprehensive planning, it would be included, and so that you'd have more attempts or more efforts to try to upgrade certain things over time.
Well, I'm at a loss. We have what is a Levitt Bowie neighborhood, for which I see no advantage to incorporating into a Bowie Town Center designation. I'm quite concerned that this leads to greater opportunities downstream, or greater potential for interpreting that area as something that should be accepting of greater density, of rezoning or changing the nature or the character of that area. And that's a neighborhood that I would not in any way, shape, or form want to see anything evolving into a town center look and feel. So far, all I've seen is it would look nice on a map because it goes all the way across, it could lead to being open for additional support of some sort. But frankly, I don't see any additional support that one would want for that type of neighborhood that would be something from a town center perspective. I'm very concerned about that. As a matter of fact, I'm outright opposed to it. I don't want that section of my district turned into a Bowie Town Center. It is not the character of the neighborhood. It should not be incorporated into that planning, and it's not, I think, in the interest of the residents, and I don't think it does anything that benefits them, and I don't see any reason why we would want to do that. I'll leave the other district folks to to speak to their other neighborhoods in terms of where they feel that boundaries should be drawn. But as far as my district is concerned, I want that out and keep the boundary down, 50 and below for that. The other aspect I have here is the neighborhood plaza. Mr. Teasdale spoke to that issue and concern. I know that there is already by right zoning changes that have been made that allows those property owners to make mixed uses out of those. What can we do as part of this process to mitigate the risk of having inappropriate development cropping up on those properties?
Well, Councilman, I think the best thing that you could do as a council is to recommend that this master plan not have any policies that encourage that type of development. And we listed in the plan or in the staff report a number of land use policies: land use 7, land use 19, 17.2, 20, housing in neighborhoods 8, and housing in neighborhoods 9. If you go back and read those policies, that's where the plan is encouraging what the council does not want encouraged. I mean, in specific terms, in terms of individual shopping centers being called out by name. And I believe even though the zoning is going to let someone come in and do it, why would you want to encourage it from a policy standpoint by having policies in the plan? So I think that's the best you can do, is to recommend and urge the county to take these policies out of the draft plan and just let the zoning control. But there won't be any reinforcement of the through the policy process.
All right, and how can we go about doing that?
It's a recommendation on page 6 of the staff report. So it's opposing those specific policies, and if that's included
I did not see that one, I'm sorry. Back on page 6, okay. Where do we see that on 6? I apologize for the...
It's in the middle of the page, Councilman, just above section B. It's the paragraph that says to implement city policy.
Okay. All right, thank you. And and what, aside from Councilman Stev and I lashing ourselves to trees, anything else we can do within this construct to prevent or to mitigate risk of upzoning and development of the properties that Jesuits currently own?
Yes, there's a recommendation in the first table on page 13. The master plan policy actually is partially implementing council's desire here. In land use policy 2.3, they're talking about taking the section of the Jesuit property south of Maryland 450 and putting it into the rural area. So it's taking it from the developing area and putting it back into the rural area. So that would be a policy change, and that's something that the park and planning staff are recommending. What our staff is recommending from the city is to expand that recommendation to include all of the Jesuit property. This is on page 13 of the staff report, and put all of that land, including the land on the north side of Maryland 450, from the established community into the rural area. So this would be a major change, a major policy change from the way things exist today on the plans. And so Park and Planning is recommending some of it, but we want them to go all the way and implement your policy.
Good, excellent. Thank you very much. That's most helpful. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Tell me a little bit more on where we stand in the overall process and where we go next with this. and the opportunity for us to get feedback. I'd like for my constituents to have an opportunity to look at the attachments that you've got here. Where do we stand in terms of timing and process?
Well, all of this information is on the project website, on the city's website, and we also have a link to the county's project page. And as I mentioned at the beginning of tonight's meeting, hearing, that the county hearing of record is going to be on the 4th of October at 5 p.m. And so anyone who wants to participate in that needs to register by going to the county council website or the project page at Park and Planning, and you have to register in advance to be able to participate. That hearing of record is a joint public hearing. It's the Prince George's County Council acting as the district council and the county planning board. That's where they create the record for this preliminary master plan. From that point on, it's an internal process. The county planning board will do a digestive testimony from the hearing. They will then make recommendations on the final plan, and it's called the adopted plan, which then goes to the county council, and this is over the next, say, 6 months period. Then the county council will get it, and they will have work sessions before they give it their final approval. So it's really an internal process to the county. Those are public work sessions and public meetings, but there's really no additional public participation as part of the plan making. So it's this October 4th date is the key date.
All right. From that standpoint, when do we need to have our commentary in?
Well, by 5 p.m. on October 4th. So you would have, what I would intend to do is take any feedback tonight, draft up a position letter, put it through the council package, have you take a look at it. And I think there's enough time to do that. We probably have 2 weekends between now and then. But we have to have it in by 5 p.m. on the 4th.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, from the standpoint of the specific recommendations that staff has, I think I'm in agreement with the majority of them. I do have concerns, as I mentioned, about the Kent Hill. I'd like to see that pulled out. I don't know if anybody else has concerns about other areas. Then there's, I'd like to make sure my constituents get a final look-see at this list. So I will share that with the folks here after this meeting and make sure we have that opportunity for feedback, and then I think we'll be good. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Mr. Minor, at this point, and hearing the councilman's point, we can take action to accept your recommendation at this time, correct? The preliminary master plan?
Yes, we would really appreciate a motion from you tonight that would direct us to then draft up the document, and then we'll put it through the package for you to take a look at.
Okay, thank you. Having said that, any other questions, concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
With the recommendations and changes we discussed, so moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same favor. Hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor. Mayor Adams. I have one thing I'd like to add, and Jose, would you stand up, please? The new Public Works Director, Mr. Jose Aldayus, is present in this nice suit tonight. So you know what he looks like now.
Hey,
all right,
thank you so very much. We're looking forward to all the wonderful things you're going to continue to do for the city of Bowie. Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard, and look forward to you being my new best friend. We have so many constituents that have a keen interest in your works, and they all seem to come through us.
It is a pleasure.
And welcome.
And before we go there, I would like to say to all of the staff and to everyone again, as always, thank you so very much for all your diligent work and effort. We do appreciate it on behalf of the entire council. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to adjourn and move to closed session. To adjourn to closed session under the statutory authority of Maryland Annotated Code, State Government Article subsection 3-305B7. To consult with counsel to obtain legal advice, and subsection 3-305B14, before a contract is awarded or bids are open, to discuss a matter directly related to a negotiation strategy or the contents of a bid proposal. A public discussion or disclosure would adversely impact the ability of this public body to participate in the competitive bidding or proposal process.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor, please respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same favor. Aye. Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.